Wild year on college campuses across the country.
Sure was. Here to break it down, the craziest stories of 2019 is the editor-in-chief of campusreform.org, Cabot Phillips. Cabot, Happy New Year. You got 3 crazy clips for us. Let's start with one near where I live in D.C.
I think that, the whole, colonial thing is, a little white supremacist-y, and I think, a hippo would be a better mascot.
I mean, colonial is kind of a touchy word.
I did sign the petition. I do understand that it is offensive to, other countries. I heard that you're not supposed to, wear the colonial's name, when you go abroad.
Oh, my goodness. Cabot, why are they trying to get rid of the GW Colonial?
Well, didn't you know the colonial mascot is a sign of white supremacy and fascism, according to many of these students? There was a giant petition at George Washington to remove the colonial mascot, which for these students who don't know it, it's just by definition someone that lives in a colony, which everyone in North America was at the time of our founding. It's not some offensive term, but this is the growing trend of students doing everything in their power to remove anything that could offend them. And this is really the result of a culture that incentivizes people to be offended by things. And a lot of these students realize, hey, when we say that something oppresses us or offends us, the university will bow down. So we saw other universities in Wyoming. There was a push to remove the cowboy mascot because it was toxic masculinity. We saw the pioneer mascot because it was a sign of racism. We saw the crusader mascot in Massachusetts removed because it was a sign of religious violence. So this is a growing trend, something we saw all throughout 2019. I think a few more mascots will be on the chopping block in 2020 if we allow this PC craziness to go on.
Absolutely. Well, the next one is really close to my heart because it involves conservative students on university campuses being taunted. Take a look.
I can't talk if you're all just going to scream. You want one at a time then? Back it up! Back it up! Back it up! Back it up! No justice! No peace! No racism! No peace!
Tell us what's happening here and what conservative students face on campus in situations like this.
Yeah, well, there's a big difference between students confronting one another and having debates and meaningful dialogue and back and forth. That's certainly protected speech. But what we saw in this video and in many others is things devolving into mob mentalities where there's threatening language being used, harassment. In this video, these students were forcibly removing these tables, packing things up, getting in students' faces, threatening to fight them, all sorts of things like that. And sadly, that has become the norm. And many times these things just aren't captured on video. When you're unaccustomed to hearing ideas that you haven't ever heard before, and on a college campus that's conservative ideas, naturally you're not going to know how to respond to them. And so for so many conservative students, they want to set up a conservative group, they want to go out and wear their MAGA hat on campus or espouse conservative ideas, and they're often met with these threats and intimidation because so many of their peers have never heard conservative ideas, they've never met a conservative student, and as a result they don't know how to react, and oftentimes it creates this violent response where they say, I don't want to have to hear this makes me uncomfortable. And it often leads them to resort to tactics like you just saw in that video.
The students end up self-censoring. They don't sit at the table, or they don't wear the MAGA hat, or they refuse to speak up because they don't want to confront that.
Well, speaking of violence, Cabot, how about this one that took place on Berkeley, where a conservative, not a student, but a conservative, gets punched in the face? This was a clip that went viral. Take a look.
Well, that was my coworker there at the Leadership Institute, Hayden Williams, and he was on campus helping conservative students spread their ideas and clearly was attacked there. It's not just a few bad apples either that are committing these violent acts against conservative people. 1 in 3 college students thinks violence is an acceptable response to hate speech. The problem is they label everything hate speech, and so violence becomes a much more common response. We need to hold these people accountable and empower conservative students to spread their ideas.
The administrations need to hold these kids accountable. They need to kick them out if they do that.
Yeah,
you're doing a great job,
the presidential administration is doing that.
All right, campusreform.org. We look forward to you keeping track of them in the new year. Thanks, Cabot.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, up next, we are counting down to 2020 live in Times Square. Adam Klotz